The Varaks were hunters. They had always been hunters. Their empire spread across 17 star systems, and every single world they touched learned to fear the sight of their ships in the sky. They had fur like shadows, claws like knives, and teeth that could bite through metal. When a Varak smiled, it was never a good sign. On the Varak's homeworld, children did not play with toys. They did not learn songs or stories. From the moment a cub could walk, they learned to kill. This was the way. This had always been the way. The strong survived. The weak became food. It was simple. Commander Thrrell stood on the bridge of her warship and watched the blue and green planet grow larger in the viewing screen. Kepler 442b. The humans called it New Haven. Thrrell called it target practice. She was old for her Varaks. Nearly 300 cycles. Her fur had turned silver at the edges, and deep scars crossed her face from battles she had won long ago. She had killed more enemies than she could count. She had burned cities and broken armies. She was exactly what the Empire wanted her to be. Behind her, 12 cubs waited in silence. They were young, barely past their first growth cycle. Their fur was still soft, their claws still short. But their eyes were sharp, and they had completed their basic training. They were ready to learn what it meant to be true Varak's warriors. "Listen well," Thrrell said without turning around. Her voice was like rocks grinding together. "The humans are a new species, soft, weak. They have no claws, no fangs, no armor. They cannot see in the dark. They cannot smell danger. They are prey." The cubs nodded. They had seen images of humans in their training. Strange creatures that walked on two legs like the Varaks, but had flat faces and dull teeth. They looked fragile, breakable. "Your mission is simple," Thrrell continued. "You will go to the surface. You will watch the humans. You will learn their weaknesses. When the time comes for conquest, your knowledge will help us destroy them quickly." She finally turned, her amber eyes sweeping across the young faces. "Do not engage. Do not reveal yourselves. Observe only. Is this understood?" "Yes, Commander," the cub said together. Kira stood at the front of the group. He was not the largest cub, but there was something different about him. Something in his eyes that looked less like hunger and more like curiosity. Beside him stood his littermate Sora, smaller and quieter. With fur the color of midnight. The shuttle dropped them at the edge of the human settlement just after dark. The cubs scattered into the shadows, moving with the natural silence of born predators. Kira led Sora and 2 others toward the largest building, the one with lights glowing warm in every window. They crept through tall grass and past strange human machines until they reached the building's edge. Kira pressed himself against the wall and peered through a window. What he saw made no sense. Humans moved around a large room filled with metal tables and strange equipment. Fire burned in boxes along the walls, but nothing was being destroyed. Instead, the humans were doing something to food. Cutting it, mixing it, putting it in the fire boxes and taking it out again changed somehow. "What are they doing?" Sora whispered. Kira had no answer. In Varak's culture, food was simple. You killed it, you ate it. Or you ate the nutrient paste the Empire provided, gray and tasteless but efficient. This was something else entirely. A large human male stood at the center of the room. He had skin the color of tree bark and arms thick with muscle. His hands moved with surprising grace as he cut vegetables into tiny pieces faster than Kira's eyes could follow. Other humans watched him, copying his movements, listening to his words. This is a teaching place, Kira realized. He is teaching them to prepare food. Why? Another cub asked. Food is food. You eat it or you don't. Kira did not know, but he wanted to find out. They watched for hours. The human teacher showed the others how to make something he called sauce. He mixed things together in a metal container, added heat, added more things, tasted it, adjusted it. The process seemed incredibly wasteful and complicated. But when he was finished, he spooned some into a bowl and gave it to one of his students. The student tasted it, and something happened to her face. Something Kira had never seen before. She smiled, but not the way Virac smiled before killing. This was different. Her whole body seemed to relax. She closed her eyes like she was experiencing something wonderful. What was that? Sora asked, her voice strange. I don't know, Kira admitted, but I want to understand it. When the teaching session ended and the lights went out, the cubs retreated to their hiding spot in a small cave outside the settlement. They were supposed to write reports to document human weaknesses. Kira stared at his blank data pad and could not think of a single thing to write. The humans were weak. This was obvious. But they were also doing something the Vorax had never done. They were making something, creating something. Not weapons, not ships, not tools for killing. Something else entirely. Kira thought about the nutrient paste he had eaten his entire life. It kept him alive. It gave him strength. But it had never made him feel the way that student looked when she tasted the sauce. We should go back tomorrow, he said quietly. The other cubs looked at him. Going back was not part of the mission. They were supposed to move through the settlement, observe different areas, map weaknesses. The commander said to learn about humans. Kira continued. This is how they spend their time. This is what matters to them. If we want to understand them, we need to understand this. It was weak logic, and they all knew it. But something had changed in that moment by the window. Something none of them could name. Sora nodded first. I agree. We should learn more. One by one, the others nodded too. None of them knew it yet, but their lives had just changed forever. They had come to this planet to learn how to kill humans. Instead, they were about to learn something far more dangerous. They were about to learn what it meant to feel alive. The next night, they returned to the building with glowing windows. And the night after that. And the night after that. The human teacher noticed them on the third night. Kira saw the man's eyes find them in the shadows. His heart stopped. This was it. The mission was over. They would have to kill him to maintain secrecy. But the human did not scream. He did not run. He did not reach for a weapon. Instead, he smiled that strange, warm smile, walked to the back door, and opened it. Then he placed 12 bowls of something hot and rich-smelling on the ground outside, and he went back to his teaching, leaving the door open behind him. The smell reached Kira's nose, and his mouth watered in a way it never had before. He looked at Sora. She looked back at him. Together, they stepped out of the shadows and into the light. The stew was still warm when Kira lifted the bowl to his mouth. He did not use his hands the way the humans did. He simply tipped the bowl and let the liquid pour down his throat. The taste hit him like a ship crashing into a planet. It was meat. Yes, he knew the taste of meat. But this was different. There were other flavors mixed in, things he had no names for. Salt and herbs and something sweet and something that burned just a little on his tongue. Every swallow brought new sensations. His whole body felt warm, not just his stomach. Around him. The other cubs were having the same experience. Sora had tears running down her fur. Tay, the largest of them, had stopped eating entirely and was just staring at his bowl like it contained the secrets of the universe. What is this? Hannah whispered to her twin sister Yuna. What did they do to the food? No one had an answer. When the bowls were empty, they sat in silence outside the back door of the cooking school. The night air was cool, and strange insects made music in the darkness. Inside, the lights still glowed, and they could hear the human teacher talking to his students. We should report this, one of the cubs said. His name was Jin, and he was the most loyal to the Empire among them. Report what? Kira asked. That the humans fed us? That is not a weakness. That is, he could not find the word. Strange. Sora finished for him. It is strange. We are their enemies. They must know this. We look nothing like them. We have been watching them for days. And they give us food? Maybe it is poison, Jin suggested. But they all knew it was not poison. Poison did not taste like that. Poison did not make you feel like something inside. You had finally woken up after sleeping your whole life. They returned the next night. The bowls were waiting for them again. This time, after they finished eating, the back door opened wider. The human teacher stood there, his big hands empty, his face calm. He did not look afraid. He looked welcoming. Would you like to come inside? He asked. His voice was deep and warm, like the stew he made. The cubs looked at each other. This was definitely not part of the mission. Commander Thrrell would be furious. But Commander Thrrell was not here, and the smell coming from inside the building was making Kira's head spin with hunger. He stepped forward first. The human stepped back to let him pass. The kitchen was even more amazing up close. Metal surfaces gleamed under bright lights. Strange tools hung from hooks on the walls. The fireboxes turned out to be something called ovens, and they produced heat without open flame. Everything was clean and organized and somehow beautiful. My name is James Walker, the human said. I am the head chef here. This is a cooking school. Do you know what that means? Kira understood the words, but not the concept. You teach humans to prepare food. I teach anyone who wants to learn, James corrected gently. Food is not just fuel for the body. It is art. It is love. It is how we share ourselves with each other. The cubs stared at him blankly. These words made no sense in any Virax context. James smiled. He seemed to do that a lot. Here, let me show you. He walked to one of the metal tables and picked up a large red vegetable. Then he picked up a knife. The cubs tensed, but James just laughed. This is for cutting food, not people. Watch. His hands moved so fast they blurred. The vegetable fell apart into perfect thin slices, each one exactly the same size as the others. It took him maybe 5 seconds. Your claws, James said, nodding at Kira's hands. They are even better than my knife. Have you ever used them for anything besides fighting? Kira looked down at his claws. They were weapons. They had always been weapons. The idea of using them for something else had never occurred to him. James placed another vegetable on the table and stepped back. Try it. Moving slowly, Kira approached the table. He extended one claw and touched it to the vegetable's surface. Then, copying what he had seen James do, he began to cut. The vegetable fell apart easily under his natural blades. Too easily at first. His first attempts were messy, uneven. But James did not criticize. He just watched and nodded and occasionally offered small suggestions. By the 10th vegetable, Kira's cuts were almost as good as James's. Natural talent, James said, and there was real warmth in his voice. Would you like to learn more? From that night on, the cubs came to the cooking school every evening. They told themselves it was still part of the mission. They were learning about human culture, understanding what was important to them. But deep down, they all knew the truth. They came because they wanted to. James taught them the basics first. How to hold a knife. How to measure ingredients. How to control heat. How to taste and adjust and taste again until something was perfect. His assistant, a young woman named Lisa Park, with flour always in her dark hair, taught them about presentation. She showed them how the way food looked was almost as important as how it tasted. She taught them about colors and shapes and arrangements. Food tells a story. Lisa explained to Sora one evening as they decorated a cake together. Every dish has meaning. On Earth, we have special foods for celebrations, for mourning, for showing love. What we eat says who we are. Sora's ears flattened in confusion. The Empire says food is just fuel. A warrior eats to fight, nothing more. Lisa paused her decorating and looked at the young Varax with kind eyes. The Empire has clearly never had birthday cake. She cut a small slice and offered it to Sora. The sweetness exploded on Sora's tongue. She had never tasted anything like it. Her eyes went wide, and a strange sound escaped her throat. It took her a moment to realize she was laughing. She had never laughed before. Varax did not laugh. "What is this feeling?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Joy," Lisa said simply. "That is called joy." Each cub found their own path in the kitchen. Sora discovered she loved making sweet things. Her small, precise claws were perfect for delicate work. The twins Hana and Yuna became fascinated with fermentation, the ancient process of letting food transform over time. Tay, despite his huge size, had a gentle touch that made perfect bread. His massive hands could knead dough for hours without tiring. Kira tried everything, wanting to understand it all. But his true talent was in meat. He understood the animals the food came from. He knew how they had lived, how they had died. And somehow, he could honor that sacrifice in the way he prepared their flesh. "You have respect," James told him one night. "That is rare. Many cooks see ingredients as just things to use. You see them as gifts. That makes all the difference." Kira did not fully understand, but he felt the truth in James's words. As the weeks passed, the cubs stopped writing reports entirely. They stopped thinking about the mission. They stopped thinking about the Empire. All they could think about was the next lesson, the next dish, the next moment of creation. They had been sent to learn killing. Instead, they were learning to live. None of them talked about what would happen when Commander Thrrell found out. None of them wanted to face that truth. They just kept cooking, kept learning, kept growing into something their people had never seen before. The Empire had made them into weapons. The humans were turning them into artists. And somewhere in the back of Kira's mind, a small voice whispered that this could not last forever. That eventually, the Empire would come looking for them. That eventually, they would have to choose. But not tonight. Tonight, there was soup to make and bread to bake. And a young Varax woman named Sora, laughing as she decorated her first wedding cake. Tonight, everything was perfect. 30 cycles had passed since the cubs landed on Kepler 442b. 30 cycles of silence. Commander Thrrell stood on her ship's bridge and felt her rage build like a storm inside her chest. No reports. No communication. No signal at all from the 12 young Varax she had personally delivered to this pathetic human world. Either they were dead, or they had disobeyed her orders. Neither option was acceptable. "Prepare my shuttle," she ordered. "I am going to the surface." Her crew did not question her. They knew better than to question Thrrell. When her claws were extended and her fur was standing on end. The shuttle landed at night, just as it had 30 cycles ago. Thrrell moved through the darkness like a ghost, her senses sharp, her weapon ready. She followed the tracking signals still embedded in the cub's flesh, signals they had apparently forgotten about. The signals led her to a building with bright windows. Even from outside, she could smell something strange, something that made her nose twitch and her mouth water against her will. She crept to a window and looked inside. What she saw made her blood turn to ice. Her cubs, her warriors, her soldiers. They stood in a line wearing white cloth coverings, their claws covered in something that looked like powder. They were laughing. Actually laughing, a sound Thrrell had never heard from Varax mouths, and they were working alongside humans, cutting vegetables. stirring pots, taking things in and out of heating boxes. One of them, the female called Sora, was using a small tool to draw designs on top of a flat brown square. She looked happy. A Varax warrior. Happy. Thrrell's vision went red that she did not bother with the door. She simply walked through the wall. Wood and glass exploded inward as her massive form burst into the kitchen. The humans screamed and fell back. The cubs froze where they stood, their eyes wide with terror. "This is treason," Thrrell roared. The word echoed off the metal surfaces. "You were sent to observe, to learn weaknesses, to prepare for conquest. And instead I find you cooking?" She said the word like it was a curse, like it was the worst thing a Varax could possibly do. Kira stepped forward. His legs were shaking, but he forced himself to stand straight. Behind him, he could feel James and Lisa, still and silent, watching. "Commander," he said, keeping his voice as steady as he could, "we have learned something important about humans." "Important?" Thrrell stalked closer, her claws leaving scratches on the metal floor. What could possibly be important about this weakness? This waste of time and resources? "They are not weak," Kira said. "They are different." Thrrell laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Different? They have no weapons, no armor, no natural defenses. They are prey animals who somehow stumbled into space. They are nothing. They create things, Kira pressed on. They take simple ingredients and turn them into art, into joy, into love. Love. Thrrell spat the word. There is no love in the Empire. There is only strength and weakness. Only hunters and prey. Only victory and death. Then the Empire is missing something. The words hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Every cub held their breath. No one had ever spoken to Commander Thrrell like this. No one had ever dared. Thrrell moved so fast that Kira did not even see her coming. One moment she was 5 steps away. The next moment, her claws were at his throat, pressing just hard enough to draw blood. "I should kill you right now," she whispered. "I should kill all of you. Traitors deserve nothing less." "Then kill us," Kira said. His voice did not waver. He was afraid, yes, but he was also certain. Kill us for learning something new. Kill us for choosing creation over destruction. Kill us for feeling joy for the first time in our lives. But know that if you do, you will be proving exactly what I said. The Empire is missing something, and you are too afraid to find out what. Thrrell's amber eyes burned into his. For a long moment, no one moved. No one breathed. Then a voice spoke from behind Kira, a human voice. "Ma'am." It was James. He stepped forward slowly, his hands raised to show they were empty. He moved past Kira and stood directly in front of Thrrell, close enough for her to kill him with a single swipe. "My name is James Walker. I am a teacher, a chef. I have never held a weapon in my life. I have never hurt another living being if I could help it. I am exactly the kind of soft, weak prey you described." Thrrell's claws twitched. "Then you are a fool." "Maybe," James agreed. "But I have spent my whole life feeding people. Thousands of them. Humans from every country on Earth. Aliens from a dozen different worlds. And these kids," he gestured to the cubs, "they came here to learn how to hurt us. I knew that from the first night I saw them watching through my window. Then why did you feed them?" Thrrell demanded. "Why did you teach them?" "Because that is what I do," James said simply. "I feed people. I teach people. I help them discover that there is more to life than survival, more to existence than fighting and killing and dying." He paused. "Your cubs came here as weapons. They are leaving as artists, as creators, as people who understand that food is not just fuel. It is love made visible. You speak of love as if it is a strength. It is the greatest strength there is. Thrrell stared at him. This soft, fragile creature who stood before her without fear. She could kill him in a heartbeat. He knew this. And still he stood there, calm and certain. "Prove it," she heard herself say. The word surprised her as much as anyone else in the room. "Prove that this cooking has value. Prove that your love is stronger than my claws. Show me something that my entire life of war and death cannot match." Kira slowly raised his hand. He was still bleeding from where Thrrell's claws had pierced his neck, but he did not seem to notice. "We can prove it," he said. "Give us a chance. Let us show you what we have learned, and if you fail, then we will accept whatever punishment you choose." Thrrell looked at the 12 cubs, at their white aprons and flour-covered hands, at their eyes, which no longer held the cold emptiness of trained killers. Something had changed in them. Something profound. She did not understand it. She did not like it, but some small part of her, buried so deep she had forgotten it existed, wanted to understand. "One lunar cycle," she said finally. "You have one lunar cycle to prepare. Then you will present your art to the War Council. Convince them that this has value to the Empire. Convince them that you are not simply traitors who forgot their duty. And if we succeed?" Kira asked. Thrrell's lips pulled back from her teeth. It was almost a smile, almost. "If you succeed, then perhaps I will try some of this love you speak of." She turned and walked toward the hole she had made in the wall. "Do not disappoint me. The War Council is not as patient as I am." She vanished into the night, leaving a kitchen full of stunned humans and terrified cubs. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Lisa cleared her throat. "So, we are making dinner for alien warlords. That is fine. Totally normal." And somehow, impossibly, the tension broke. The cubs laughed. The humans laughed. Even Kira laughed, though blood was still dripping down his neck. They had one lunar cycle to prepare a meal that would save their lives. It would not be easy, but it would be delicious. The lunar cycle passed faster than anyone expected. 28 standard days. 672 hours. Every single one of them spent in the kitchen. Kira barely slept. None of the cubs did. They worked until their hands ached and their eyes burned. Then they worked some more. James and Lisa matched them hour for hour, teaching and guiding and pushing them to be better. The War Council has 47 members. Kira explained on the first day of preparation. He stood at the center of the kitchen with maps and data spread across the table. They are the oldest and most powerful warriors in the Empire. They have conquered worlds. They have destroyed civilizations. They have eaten nothing but nutrient paste and raw meat for their entire lives. So we need to impress beings who have never experienced good food, Lisa said. No pressure. Not just impress, Kira corrected. We need to change them. We need to make them feel something they have never felt before. If we fail, they will kill us without hesitation. James rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Then we do not just cook for their stomachs. We cook for their souls. What matters to the Vorax? What do they value? What do they remember? The cubs looked at each other. It was Sora who answered. Strength, honor, the hunt. Her voice was soft but certain. All creation myths speak of the first hunter, who chased the great beast across the stars for 1,000 cycles before finally catching it. The moment of the kill was sacred. It was not just death. It was respect, gratitude. The beast gave its life so the hunter could live. That, James said, his eyes lighting up. That is what we cook. Not just food. A story, a memory, a reminder of who your people were before they became only soldiers. The planning began immediately. Kira would handle the main course. He chose a wild animal native to the human world, something with rich red meat and strong flavor. He would prepare it in a way that honored the Varax hunting tradition, with every step of the cooking process telling part of the story. The meat must be perfect, he explained to James one late night. Not just in taste, but in meaning. When the council eats it, they must remember what it means to hunt, to chase, to catch, to take life with respect. Sora took charge of dessert. She designed something no Varax had ever seen before, a frozen sculpture shaped like the great beast from their creation myths. Every piece was edible, made from sweet cream and sugar and flavors that would melt on the tongue like clouds. Our people do not have desserts, she said, as she practiced the sculpture for the 100th time. They think sweetness is weakness. I want to show them that sweetness is also strength. That joy is not something to fear. The twins, Hana and Yuna, worked on fermented dishes that used Varax ingredients. They sent requests back to the homeworld through secret channels, asking for grains and vegetables from their birth planet. When the ingredients arrived, they transformed them into something new. This is the taste of home, Hana said as she adjusted the fermentation process. But better. The council will taste their childhood in these dishes. They will remember times before they became warriors. Tay-baked bread. Simple bread, made from ancient Varax grains that had not been used for food in centuries. The Empire had declared them inefficient. Tay proved the Empire wrong. Bread is humble, he said, his massive hands gentle on the dough. It does not show off. It does not demand attention. But it feeds people. It comforts people. It says you are welcome here. You belong. The other cubs helped where they could, each contributing their skills. Jin, who had been the most loyal to the Empire, surprised everyone by developing a soup course that combined human and Varax cooking techniques. It was neither one thing nor the other, but something entirely new. If we are going to change things, he said quietly, we need to show that change is possible, that two different peoples can create something together. Lisa worked with all of them on presentation. Every dish needed to look as beautiful as it tasted. Every plate needed to tell its part of the story. Food is theater, she reminded them constantly. The first bite happens with the eyes. James taught them about timing. 47 guests. Multiple courses. Everything needed to arrive hot, fresh, and perfect. There was no room for mistakes. Cooking for 2 is easy, he said. Cooking for 10 is challenging. Cooking for 50 is war. But it is a war you can win if you plan carefully. 3 days before the meal, Commander Thrrell visited the kitchen. She did not break through the wall this time. She used the door. The cubs stopped working and stood at attention, old habits dying hard. But Thrrell waved them down. Continue, she said. I am not here to inspect. I am here to observe. She stood in the corner and watched them work for hours. Her face revealed nothing. But Kira noticed that her nostrils kept twitching. And once he saw her swallow hard when Sora pulled a practice cake from the oven. When Thrrell finally left, she paused at the door. The council arrives in 3 days, she said without turning around. High Warlord Malik himself will attend. He has not left the homeworld in 50 cycles. This meal of yours has attracted attention. Is that good or bad? Kira asked. Thrrell was silent for a moment. Malik is 800 cycles old. He has killed more beings than there are stars in this system. He has never shown mercy, never shown weakness, never shown anything except strength. She finally turned, and her eyes found Kira's. If anyone can be changed by food, it is not him. But if you somehow manage to reach him, then perhaps you will reach everyone. She left. Kira looked at his fellow cubs, at James and Lisa, at the kitchen that had become their home. "We are cooking for the most dangerous being in the Empire," Sora said quietly. "A creature who has spent 800 cycles building walls around his heart. Then we need to cook something that can break through those walls," Kira replied. "Is that even possible?" James stepped forward and put his hand on Kira's shoulder. It was a gesture he had learned meant support and comfort among humans. It felt strange, but also right. "When I was young," James said, "my grandmother made a soup. Simple beef broth, just bones and vegetables and thyme. I tasted it once when I was 5 years old. I am 57 now, and I still remember exactly how it tasted. I still remember sitting at her table. I still remember feeling safe and loved." They looked around at all of them, human and Varax alike. Food is memory. Food is emotion. Food is connection. Your warlord Malik has lived 800 cycles. Somewhere in all that time, there was a moment when he was not a killer. There was a moment when he was just a child, afraid and alone, wanting someone to care for him. James smiled. "We are going to cook for that child. We are going to remind him that he still exists." The final 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. And then, before anyone was ready, the War Council arrived. The moment of truth had come. The council chamber on Commander Thrrell's warship was vast and cold. Metal walls stretched up into darkness. The floor was stained with old blood from disputes settled the Varax way. It smelled of war and death and power. 40-7 warlords sat at a massive circular table. They were ancient things, scarred and terrible, their fur gray or white or missing entirely. Their eyes held nothing but darkness. They had lived so long and killed so much that they had forgotten how to be anything else. At the head of the table sat High Warlord Malik. He was smaller than Kira expected. 800 cycles had shrunk him, bent his spine, thinned his fur to patches of white over dark spotted skin. But his eyes were sharp as ever, 2 points of yellow fire that seemed to look through everything they touched. "So," Malik said. His voice was like sand moving over bones. "These are the cubs who forgot their mission." Kira stood at the entrance to the chamber with his 11 companions. They wore their white chef coats, cleaned and pressed. Behind them, rolling carts held covered dishes that steamed gently in the cold air. "Yes, High Warlord," Kira said. "We are. And you believe that cooking can justify your betrayal?" "We believe that cooking can show you something the Empire has forgotten, High Warlord." Malik leaned forward. The warlords around him growled low in their throats, offended by Kira's boldness. "We have forgotten nothing," Malik said. "We remember every world we have taken, every enemy we have destroyed, every victory we have won. But do you remember joy?" Kira asked quietly. "Do you remember comfort? Do you remember what it felt like to be cared for?" The chamber went silent. Malik stared at Kira for a long moment. His claws tapped against the metal table, a sound like raindrops on a dead world. "Serve your meal, cub. Let us see if it is worth your life." Kira nodded to his companions. They moved forward, pushing their carts, taking positions around the table. The first course was gin soup. Simple bone broth, made with ingredients from the Varax homeworld. Each bowl was placed before a warlord in complete silence. The warlords looked at the soup with suspicion. Most of them had not eaten anything except nutrient paste in centuries. The concept of prepared food was almost alien to them. Malik was the first to lift his bowl. He sniffed at once, his nostril slits flaring. Then he drank. Nothing happened for a moment. Then the High Warlord's eyes widened. His ancient hands began to shake. The bowl trembled, spilling a few drops of broth onto the table. "What is this?" he whispered. "Memory, High Warlord," Jin answered. "The taste of home. The taste of what we were before we became soldiers." Malik said nothing. He simply drank the rest of the soup in silence. Around him, the other warlords did the same. The chamber filled with the sound of drinking. One of them, a female with burns covering half her face, made a sound that might have been a sob. The second course was Hana and Yuna's fermented vegetables, sharp and sour and alive with flavor. The twins served them on small plates, arranged to look like flowers. "Our homeworld had gardens once," Yuna said as she served, "before the Empire paved them over for weapons factories. These vegetables are grown from seeds that were saved by our ancestors. We are the first Varax in 200 cycles to taste them." The warlords ate slowly. Some of them closed their eyes. Some of them simply stared at their plates as if they could see something in the arrangement of vegetables that no one else could see. Malik ate every bite. His ancient face showed nothing, but his eyes were wet. The third course was Tay's bread. Simple golden loaves, still warm from the oven, served with butter made from local animal milk. "Bread is humble," Tay said, his deep voice filling the chamber. "It does not conquer. It does not destroy. It only feeds. It only nourishes. It only says, 'You are welcome here.'" When the warlords tasted the bread, several of them made sounds of surprise. One of them, a massive male who had personally destroyed an entire planet's population, actually laughed. "This is good," he said, wonder in his voice. "This is truly good." Tay smiled. It was the first time a Varax had ever smiled at a warlord and lived. The fourth course was Kira's main dish. The wild animal meat, prepared with respect and honor, served with a rich sauce and roasted vegetables. "Our people are hunters," Kira said as he placed the dish before Malik. "We have always been hunters. But hunting is not just about killing. It is about respect for the prey, gratitude for the sacrifice." The first hunter did not hate the great beast. He loved it. That is why the chase lasted 1,000 cycles. That is why the final moment was sacred. Malik looked at the meat on his plate. His claws trembled. "How do you know this story?" he asked. "It has not been told in 600 cycles," Kira finished. "The Empire banned it. They said it was weakness. They said respect for prey was foolishness." He met Malik's eyes. They were wrong. Malik had a piece of meat. He raised it to his mouth. He chewed slowly, and then, for the first time in 800 cycles, the High Warlord of the Varax Empire began to cry. Tears rolled down his ancient face, cutting through the scars and wrinkles. His shoulders shook. The warlords around him stared in shock as their leader, the most feared being in 17 star systems, wept like a child. "This tastes," Malik said, his voice breaking, "like my mother used to make. Before the Empire took me. Before I became this." He gestured at himself, at his scarred body, and his cold eyes, and his centuries of violence. "I had forgotten," he whispered. "I have forgotten what it was like to be cared for, to be fed with love instead of efficiency. I had forgotten that I was ever anything but a weapon." He looked at Kira, and there was something new in those ancient yellow eyes. Something that looked almost like hope. "How did you know? How did you bring this back?" Kira thought of James and Lisa, of late nights in the kitchen, of the first bowl of stew he had tasted 30 cycles ago. "A human taught me," he said. "He taught me that food is not just fuel. It is love made visible. It is connection. It is the way we show each other that we care." The final course was Sora's dessert. The frozen sculpture of the great beast, glittering with sugar crystals, surrounded by clouds of sweet cream. "Our people do not have deserts," Sora said as she served. "We think sweetness is weakness. But sweetness is also joy, also celebration, also hope." She placed a piece before Malik. "This is what it feels like to be happy, High Warlord. This is what the Empire has been missing. Malik tasted the dessert. His eyes closed. A smile spread across his ruined face, the first genuine smile he had worn in centuries. When the meal was finished, the High Warlord rose from his seat. The chamber fell silent. "Cub," he addressed Kira directly. "What do you call this thing you have done to us?" Kira straightened his back. Behind him, his 11 companions stood together, united by something stronger than Empire loyalty. The humans call it hospitality, High Warlord. They believe that feeding someone is the highest form of respect. That sharing food creates bonds stronger than blood. Malik nodded slowly. "And you believe this?" Kira looked at his friends. At the warlords, many of them still crying. At the empty plates and the crumbs and the evidence of something that had never happened before. "I believe that the Empire has been starving for a very long time," he said. "Not for food, for meaning, for connection, for the things that make life worth living instead of just surviving." Malik was silent for a long moment. Then he did something unprecedented. He bowed to Kira, a full bow, the gesture of respect that the Voraks reserved only for those who had defeated them in combat. "The cubs will live," he declared. "They will return to the homeworld. They will teach us this art. They will remind us what we have forgotten." He turned to Commander Thrrell, who had watched everything from the shadows. "You were right to bring them here. You were right to give them this chance." The ghost of a smile crossed his lips. "Perhaps there is hope for our people yet." 5 years later, the first Voraks cooking school opened on the homeworld. It was called Walker's Academy, named after the human who had taught a group of predator cubs that there was more to life than killing. Kira became the Empire's first minister of hospitality. Wars became harder to start when enemies shared meals together. Diplomatic meetings always included food now, prepared with love and served with respect. Sora published a cookbook that sold millions of copies across 17 star systems. She dedicated it to Lisa, who had taught her that sweetness was not weakness. And Commander Thrrell? She never fully gave up her warrior ways. But every night, without fail, she sat down to a proper dinner. Some victories, she had learned, did not require blood at all. They just required a really good meal. The end.